Transparency, blending and layering are what make watercolor and are at the heart of its beauty. One is a key feature of watercolor and the other two are key techniques to preserve the first one. This is the nature and the approach to watercolor wrapped in this short video where I will as simply as possible explain how to learn to use them with this artistic medium the proper way without stressing too much or at all if possible. So be sure to stick around. Hello, my name is Fiona De Pinto and this is Drawings in a Drawer. On this channel we discuss everything watercolour and more. So if that is something you enjoy yourself, be sure to click on that notification bell so you won't miss any of my future uploads. And now, without further ado, let's dive right into this topic. Quick tip. I like to brush clean water over my sketch. This has the purpose of sealing in the graphite and preventing it from smudging. But always be sure to use a non-greasy pencil like an H2 when you're sketching on watercolour paper. For me, this has the double purpose of also being able to start painting on a wet surface, which makes me stay looser in my style. But if you're a beginner or want more control, let the paper dry before you go in with your paint. With that said and done, let's talk about what's in the title of this video, transparency. The reason watercolour is transparent is because the pigments of colour allow the light to shine through and reflect off the white of the paper. This is why watercolour is, let's say, see-through. It allows to see the previous layers. This feature is what makes watercolour so luminous and different from other mediums, and your goal is to use it the right way so that you don't lose this beautiful effect. As you can see here, at this very early stage, I'm not fussy at all when it comes to where the paint goes, which is more or less everywhere because my paper is wet. I'm using the wet and wet technique, which is one of two, the other one being wet and dry, but I'm not going to talk about that too much this time as I've tackled this subject in other videos on my channel, and I will do a more in-depth one in the future. When I first started using watercolour, I came from other mediums and I hadn't the faintest idea of how you blended it. I have kind of forgotten how to paint with oils and acrylics now, but I remember the process was a little bit more intuitive. The truth is that with watercolour, it comes down to the medium blending itself on its own when it's wet, as it moves through water and with water. Don't be scared, this can be an advantage because as you move on in your journey, you will be able to enjoy the slight unpredictability of this aspect. When watercolour blends itself, so to speak, it can create some hard edges and blooms as the water might puddle and pool in certain areas and different parts of the painting will dry at different speeds. This is when the second way of blending comes in, and that is manoeuvring the paint with your brush so that you now take control over the blending process. In fact, you can do this right from the start if it makes you feel less shaky. It is crucial though to clean your brush with water every time you want to blend, or the risk of creating mud is greater. I think my students must have heard the phrase, use your clean damp brush to blend, about 2,000 times. That's how important it is. want to circle back to transparency for a minute as I paint these flowers. The reason why I thought of this topic for this video was because I was really experimenting with transparency when I came to these orange poppies, and it really puts it all into focus. The concept is actually quite simple. Once the previous layer has dried completely, you can go over it, even using the same colour like I did. And not only in this case will the petal below still show through, but it will be building up intensity and richness of colour because I will be intensifying the tone where the sections of the petals overlap. And that is because, of course, in those spots, we will have 2 layers of paint rather than 1. With other mediums, you have to fake transparencies. In watercolour, the transparency is real and it's just waiting for you to explore it. Isn't that exciting? By the way, if you don't like being alone or like having company, that extra encouragement while drawing or painting, these topics plus drawing practice are all covered with my amazing art community. We meet via Zoom several times a month to put this all into practice. If you want to check this out and also get instant access to all my recorded tutorials, I will leave the links in the description box for you to see. And another bonus tip, if you put a layer down that seems too heavy, too dark and watery, use the lifting technique. Press down that clean, almost dry brush and just soak up the extra mixture. It works a wonder. You can do this several times in areas where you want a pop of light or even more transparency. Layering is the way to go with watercolour. We work from light to dark, always from light to dark, and by doing this we create depth and texture. We let each layer dry before we move on to the next one, so we obtain a beautiful crisp result. We add details by using a thicker mixture, almost like cream. This is how I created the sharper edges and the veins that run through the petals. I sometimes imagine this is as if I were positioning sheet upon sheet of coloured tracing paper, one on top of the other, or like light shining through stained glass. Layering also means glazing. With glazing, by simply using a watery mixture with a small amount of pigment, we can cool down an underlying colour if we use a cool colour like a blue, or warm it up if we use a warm colour like a yellow ochre. And we can do this with flowers, but also with portraits. We can use it for shadows on buildings. Glazing is just another of the almost magical things watercolour has up its sleeve, and now you have up your sleeve too, if you didn't know about this until now. To stop midway through, and I said this in a video on Instagram, and take a picture to make sure that your proportions are right and that things are looking okay. So this is a picture I took, and it really helps me see certain things. For example, the earlobe is too large, and certain other things. So it's really important to take a photograph halfway through your work
to be able to assess it, it helps it a lot. It's almost like stepping away from your work. So I would pick up I would pick up that habit.
Layering also means diminishing the amount of water you use in your mixture so that it moves about less and you can start working on those details. So the rule of thumb for layering, apart from working from light to dark, is also to work from watery to thicker as you move on in the process. But that is going to be all from me for today. I really hope this video helped at least some of you. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions and I will always get back to you. I will see you all next Sunday. Put it in your calendars. Bye for now.